All right, guys, time for another cleaning video. This time we're going to do a Fantastic Four number 28 with the X-Men, the greatest superhero team of all time. We're going to go ahead and get started, but don't forget, if you leave a comment, you'll be entered for an Uncanny X-Men 244 and a CGC 9.8. And I got a couple of affiliate links for BCW and My Comic Shop. If you use those below, it does help out the channel. We're going to go ahead and get started. So first things first, going to open this up. We're going to get to the inside cover. We're going to slide a backing board in behind this. Again, this is just to give a little bit of a buffer so we have something firm to race against. And we're going to start off as we always do, just a dry clean with a cotton round. Nothing fancy, just a plain white cotton round. We're going to nice and gently rub around the cover. I do apologize, my audio got screwed up again, so I am doing a voiceover on this, which is kind of difficult because I said all kinds of great things when I cleaned it the first time. So now I'm going to have to go back and try to remember what I said, but this step's pretty basic. We're just rubbing gently across the cover. This book's really in good shape, so I'm not too worried about pressing and causing any issues with the cotton round. This is a great cover for cleaning and hopping, though, just because of the white and the colors on it. The other great thing about a book like this is that it's really sturdy. You know, it's the staples are tight, so there's very almost no chance of any kind of damage. You can see there are a lot of dirt already coming off, which is more than I expected. I didn't expect to get much. So we'll get into the erasing. And with this book, I don't really need to use the little eraser that much. You can see here I'm using the bigger pencil topper eraser, and the gaps are big enough where I can use this. It's hard to tell, but it has like a pointy edge, so I can kind of work in those little gaps very easily. There are a few spots where I'll probably use the micro eraser, but for the most part, I can do most of this with the standard pencil topper eraser. It is important too to, like, my left hand's always on the book, always holding it down. It's real important when you work around this edge. You see I put my pinky there, or my index finger there, mainly just to keep that edge from rolling back or tearing. I say this in all the videos, but the big key when you're doing this is just slow, steady, consistent pacing. You're not erasing this like if you put your name in pencil or something in pencil and screwed it up. You're really just lightly brushing across the top, and I zoomed in a little bit here so you can kind of get a better picture of some of the dirt and possibly some of the defects as we erase them. One thing I don't really mention a lot too, it's important to kind of start and either go in like a clockwise motion or a counterclockwise motion, because what will happen is you may end up missing an area because it's not really dirty, and you don't notice it as much. And it's important to kind of, wherever you start, just work in a pattern around or across, or however, you can come up with your own system. You can start at the top and work your way down, or the bottom up, left, right, whatever works, but it is important to have a process and be consistent with that. You can see here too, now we're zoomed in, you can see all those little crumbs of eraser, and again, they're dark because they have dirt in them. That eraser, if you just were to cut pieces off, it would be white. So there's little crumbs of dark eraser coming off is good, because that means we're pulling dirt out of this. And I say it all the time, it's more important about preserving the book. This dirt, you don't know what it is, you don't know what's in it. And over time, it's just going to deteriorate the papers. It's a substance that over time with the wrong chemicals will absolutely break down. So everything we remove from it now is just one less thing that can help to break it down over time. And you want these comics to be around long after we're gone. They're great stories. They're part of pop culture. They're part of my childhood, and my morals and, and my compass on life was very much driven by comic books, and specifically the X-Men. So it's important just to try and preserve these things as long as we can. And these types of tools and techniques that I'm doing here will make this book last for my kids and even their kids' generations. So yeah, take your time. Definitely make sure you're hitting all the spots. You can see too with it zoomed in now, you can see a lot of those little micro wrinkles and little crunches in the paper. It's hard for me to show all that, but when it's pressed, those will all be gone. So once I go through the pressing process, I'll show a picture after it's done and pressed, but you just can't see them as well because uh, it's hard to. I'm not good at pictures. Go to Matt for impressed if you want good pictures. That's not my forte. um, but yeah, just you can see them all the little ripples and dimples and all that stuff. Those will all be gone. You also notice here as I'm working around the lettering, I do get the micro eraser out. It's important to be consistent, so you don't want to just leave that and not do it. But it's also important to use an eraser that's not going to get into the black or the red, because then you may have some gloss loss, or you may have some color loss from erasing on it. So this is where a tool like that's really handy. I highly recommend if you're going to clean books, get something like this, if not this specific one. All right, so we're getting close to kind of finishing up. You can see here I'm doing around the corner box a little bit. Again, very cautious in there, using both the pencil top eraser and the micro eraser. I am going in this area here just because there's a lot of little spots of dirt that will be removed. You can't really see them well on the camera, but there are some dirt there. So I am, I'm 50-50 on these. Sometimes I feel like it's worth doing, sometimes it's not. It really just depends on the book and what you're looking at. But because it's all white, it matches the background and there's dirt there, I'm going to do a little bit of work, but not too much. So I'm going to go in. This is kind of the last little bit I have here is underneath the big banner with all the words on it and what's going on in the story. Again, nice big white area, easy to erase. I love areas like this on books because one, they have a lot of dirt on them usually, and two, they're very easy to clean. White is such a great cover color just because it's easy to clean. The backs, a little bit different story on the backs because it's all white usually. We'll get into that in a minute. But you can see here I'm still using the pencil topper in this small area just because I have that nice hard edge on this. This is a brand new pencil topper. Thank you, Rich at Big Nasty, for buying me a lifetime supply of pencil topper erasers. That's what this is here, but it has a really nice sharp edge, so it's easy to use. And you can kind of see here it's a little bit out of camera, but I'm working lightly on the spine. But when I do this, the backing board I put underneath the cover at the beginning, I move that out a little bit, and you can see that at the top where it's kind of pushed out. Because if I have it in all the way, when I'm erasing it, it'll create a little crease on the edge, and I don't want to do that. So lastly, I'm just going to take the absorbing pad. Again, great underrated tool. This thing's great. Just lightly rub across this. It's got a little bit of grab to it, so you want to be careful. Make sure you're holding it down nice and firm, but just kind of rub away. And you don't want to scrub it. You want to pull one direction and one direction only. I usually go top and out and bottom and out, and then I'll usually go out towards the open edge of the book away from the spine. But again, every book's different. It just depends on if there's a tear somewhere, I might need to work around that tear, be mindful of that. So we're pretty much done with the front now. But overall, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I think it's going to do well with the hop. We'll flip it over and we'll get to the back. The technique and the process and everything you're going to do on the back is very much the same as the front. What you do end up running into in the back, though, is usually it's a lot dirtier. For good reason. They comic books, especially back in the 60s and 70s, they're sitting on top of desks. They're not in a bag and a board. There's dirt on the desk or the table or the floor or wherever they might be. So you can kind of see all the dirt and grime on there. There's a lot of wrinkles on that. Again, the press will take care of all of that. So you also notice, and I pointed to it, I have like I mentioned on the front, the backing board that's underneath here is slightly inset. And that's so that as I erase down this edge, I'm not creating that crease. So I have a nice, solid surface to erase on, and I'm going to work all the way down. And you can see there how it's almost got a little bit of a crease on the left side. It's actually not creasing it, but if I did have it all the way to edge, it would create a very substantial, very easily seen crease right along the spine, which just becomes something else I have to try and press out. So I don't want to have to mess with that when I'm pressing it. And the other thing that's tough on these books is, for whatever reason, a lot of times at the spine, you get a lot more like just weird gunk and grime. And I don't know why that is, but if you pick up any older comic book you've got and you look at the spine edge, it's always darker on the spine than anywhere else on the cover usually. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's how they stored them, whatever. But you always kind of see that. So we're just going to work all the way down the edge here. Again, I'm just rubbing softly. It's hard to tell in the camera, but I'm not using a lot of pressure. wiping off all that grit and grime, and then I'm going to push that backing board in all the way against the spine so that I have a nice solid surface to work on for the rest of the book. There is a little tear right there at the top. That's I think I can probably get it to flatten out. I'm going to use this tool here. This is just like a sculpting tool, but what I also always have near me that I keep handy just in case is a little glass of, I get a fresh glass every time, but a little glass of water. I'll just wet my finger and just get that wet and push down a little bit, and that will kind of, it gives it the pliability to kind of form back out, and then I'll just flatten it out. And then I don't want to erase on this while it's still damp. You can see it's wet there. So let it dry. Again, a little bit of water isn't bad on comic books either. If you're cautious, you obviously don't soak it in water, but there is like I've mentioned before, there's a process of wet cleaning, which is a very different process than dry cleaning, and can be useful on some stains or some tide lines, things like that. Again, I don't go over that process, and I probably never will, just because it's a risky process that if you don't do right, you could really damage a book. And I don't want to be the one to give you the tool that may cause you to damage one of your books. There are tutorials out there. I would recommend looking at some, finding people who are experts in that field if you're interested in learning how to wet clean comics. But it is a process, and like I said, I do it. I just don't show it. I don't. It's not something, and I don't do it often. I say that, but I don't do it all the time. So I'm checking the edge there because it looks like you can see on the top there's a little bit of fold and rolling. But what I noticed when I flip it over is it looks like it's probably some bug or rodent chew right on the top edge, which also is very common on books of this age. So don't be alarmed if you see a little rippled edge that kind of is jagged and breaks the straight line. That's probably rodent chew almost every time. All right, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit here just because it's just cleaning. There's nothing that's you haven't seen before that's worth really going into detail on, but again, just going through, cleaning all the spots. The one thing I always say is you can see I'm kind of doing the gutters and stuff here. I don't really do where the words are themselves. It's just not, you're going to do more damage than help, even if there's big dirt spots. So don't really mess around in the lettering too much. I will do the little coupon mail away thing here just because there's big gaps between the lines. But as far as the words themselves, I don't really mess around. All right, so now we're going to get into my favorite part of cleaning and pressing. I am a hop junkie. Going to grab my peroxide you see here. I do label it because I have a bottle of water too. Just standard hydrogen peroxide, nothing fancy. And I love this process just because I feel like it does so much for the book in so many ways. I can't stress enough how much of a proponent I am of this process. So we're going to just mist this piece of paper. You can see it really start to absorb the dark spots. So it's really speckled right now. The goal is to get those speckles not there. You really want it saturated completely and evenly across it. So always flip it over. Keep checking for those light areas. You really want to make sure you get it all and it really has a chance to absorb it evenly across the whole sheet. You can see the shine there, but overall most of the speckles are pretty much gone. Flip it over, there's a little bit in the middle there, but it's very wet right now, and that wetness will spread, so those should be gone by the time we get to the next step, which is now. All right, so pretty much instantaneous for you, but it's been about 15 minutes for me. We're going to go ahead and start doing our stacking layers. As always, the first thing you use is a magazine size backer board or some size backer board that's bigger than the comic book. You can lay a piece of printer paper or 65-pound cardstock here. It's hit or miss whether I do or not. It doesn't matter. On this one, I'm going to use 20-pound paper, but it's not a big deal if you don't have that. And then the next thing you can do is the book. It's always just like pressing. You're always going to put a backer board in the center fold, and that's to protect the spine, to protect the staples. You don't want to not have that, because if you don't, when you press the book, you'll actually smash the staples. It could pop them out, it could indent them. And then the last thing you want to do before you put your hop sheet on there is just one sheet of 20-pound paper underneath the cover. And then we're going to grab our sheet that we sprayed the peroxide on. It's just off camera. And we're going to line it up. It's important, I've said this before, to make sure you line it up the first time so that you're not you're covering all the corners and all the edges. You don't want it like a piece of the cover not covered with the hopped paper. It's also much easier to reposition now as you're doing this than after it's already like wet and on the book. It can still be done once it's on the book, but it's just easier to do it up front here. Try and make sure you're nice and squared up. Let it down. You can see that water immediately absorb into the cover, which is what you're looking for. And then you're just going to press out any wrinkles, any bubbles, anything that is going to keep the book from getting that full effect of the hop. And then keep in mind, we are going to have some dwell time. It's going to sit in the press with a little pressure on it. That will help if there's any little bubbles. Lastly, 20-pound paper on top of that, and that's just to absorb a little bit more of that moisture out of that when we heat it up. Then we're going to use a 65-pound cardstock. And then the last piece is the backer board, the magazine backer board. So now it is ready to go into the press, and we'll be back with it coming out, and we'll see the results. All right, so we are out of the press. Let's see how we did with the hop. Again, always take off one sheet at a time so the backer board comes off really simple. 65-pound cardstock should come off very easily, shouldn't have any tack. Then we're going to get our first 20-pound paper. It'll be a little sticky here, so you want a nice peel, slow off. You don't want to peel that under sheet off. And then we'll take it off, and then we'll get to the main one. And again, always use a lot of caution here in case it's a little sticky, so you don't tear the cover. So this isn't too bad. We'll peel it off. You see a little bit of the red transfer, which is pretty common. You can see that brown all the way around the edge. That's all dirt and tanning that came out of the book. I'll try and zoom in a little bit to give you a little bit better view, but you can see here holding a piece of white paper up. It's really dark right there. And it's all around the entire exterior of the book. So that's awesome that we got that kind of progress. And here you can see it zoomed in here, and hopefully you can see how much dirt we truly did get out of this book. It's quite a bit. It's all the way around. You can see it on all the edges, all the way around the entire book. So awesome that we got that much dirt out. All right, so we're zoomed back out, and we'll just pull out the inside piece of 20-pound paper. And again, sometimes you get some transfer, and you can see right away on the edge, there's quite a bit right on that edge where we just got a ton of dirt that transferred to the inside sheet. So that's awesome too, because again, it's just crap that's not in the book anymore, doing damage over time. I'm not showing the whole process again for the back. You guys have seen it, spray and all that. So this is the back we've already finished. Taking the cardstock off, or the backing board off, and then the 65-pound cardstock. And then we're going to take our first piece of 20-pound off and peel nice and slow. And then our last piece of 20-pound. And again, just take it off nice and easy. Make sure we don't stick it all. And kind of the same as the front. You can see those yellow corners. That's really what you're hoping for. When you do this, you really want to see that yellow on the edges. And overall, I think this book got a lot of benefit from hop. And some books don't get as much as this one did. I'll try and get a side-by-side of a before and after so you can kind of see the difference of what it looked like before and what it looked like after. You can clearly see a difference here in these two. The one on the left is the before, the one on the right is after. I tried to mimic the same lighting and everything as the original picture to make sure that there's no differences in lighting that makes it look different. But overall, this camera shot doesn't do it justice on how white this book really is. I mean, it is so much brighter than it was before. The colors pop so much more. And it just doesn't show well in the camera. So overall, really happy with the results here. This will be getting sent to CGC. Hopefully we'll get a good grade. And it's going to go through a final press and then off to the shipping. But thanks again for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a comment so you can be entered for the giveaway for the Uncanny X-Men 244 and the CGC 9.8. And if you can, use the affiliate links below. It does help out the channel. Hope you guys are having a great one. Collect what you love, and we'll see you next time.
Johnny's comic stuff, take the stage. Bright and bold from panel to page. X-Men battle in the stormy tide. Batman glides through the